Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Martel and Friends podcast. My name is Antoine Martel. On this podcast, we talk to entrepreneurs about starting and scaling businesses. I'm a real estate investor and entrepreneur. I flipped over 650 homes in the last 10 years, and now I started a company, Flip System, to help others do the same. I'm sitting here today also with my co-host, Eric Martel.
Hello.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
And today, as a guest, we have Ben Soffer. Ben is a CEO and founder of Spritz Society, which is an award-winning canned cocktail company. Ben is also the creator of the Instagram account Boy With No Job and a social media expert with nearly 2 million followers across social media. And he's currently the host of the Good Guys podcast with Josh Peck. Ben, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you both.
Nice to meet
Pumped
you.
to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. So first, I want to talk about Spritz Society.
Yes.
And how you got into that. I know you were working at a couple of different companies here in New York. Like, what made you want to make that jump into starting your own business venture? Have you been entrepreneurial before? Like, tell us about that and the story.
So I've always wanted to do something. You're sort of an idea guy before you become an actual entrepreneur. So I've had plenty of horrendous ideas and started and stopped things. This is the first thing that I've started and not stopped, right? And the idea was we have these huge audiences. We speak to millennial women on a daily basis for the most part. Even though I try to speak to more millennial men, it's really predominantly women. My wife's audience, she reaches 4+ million people on a daily basis. And
Wow.
It's 90% women. She's a girl with no job, and her podcast is called The Toast.
Yeah.
And the podcast is now probably 70-30 female. Instagram is similar. And the idea was, the ready-to-drink canned beverage space is making a lot of products that are making a lot of money that don't taste very good, and never asking the customer what they want. Like, we live in a world where we can talk to our customers on a daily basis without going through some random third party that's surveying a collective as opposed to a person, right? And this whole celebrity-backed business model is businesses are being created by entrepreneurs. They are then going to a celebrity and typically inauthentically partnering together on something that the celebrity thinks will make them money, but they never necessarily enjoyed, and their audience certainly didn't ask for it. Like, I know that there can't be 100 celebrities all wanting to launch tequila for authentic reasons outside of wanting to get acquired. And the audience that typically has overlap, like The Rock's audience and Kevin Hart's audience, for example, they're best friends. How do they both own tequilas and not have crossover? They absolutely have crossover. So we went to our audience and we said, what do you want? This canned space is really crowded, but there's got to be something different because White Claws and Trulies just don't taste that great. It's early on and they're malt-based, and what is malt? There were all these question marks. And so we put together a Google form and asked our audience their opinions on logos, flavors, can designs, alcohol percentage, alcohol base, and crowdsourced innovation, and called that R&D group the Spritz Society. So the name of the brand pays homage to the community that helped us build it. And what they said to us was, as millennial women, shockingly, we like a glass of Pinot Grigio or Sauvignon Blanc at the end of the day. Why doesn't anybody use wine? And sure, people have used wine. There were wine spritzers back in the day. Aperol spritzes sort of made a bit of a renaissance, but typically they're speaking to 60-plus-year-old women. They're not speaking to millennial women. And it's like, why? Why not? They love wine too. They don't want to drink a glass of rosé and then slam a vodka High Noon. That's not what they want. Like, they want to keep things in the same family, right? So hired a world-class beverage scientist and got to work. That was the impetus. Was just, there's so much opportunity in the alcohol space to innovate by actually innovating what the customer wants as opposed to where the industry is telling people it's going. Because the industry trends are always behind.
Gotcha. Love that.
Cool.
Love that. Okay, so you knew you wanted to go in the direction of like an alcohol-based beverage. And then you and your wife just surveyed your audiences, collected that, and were like, oh shit, here's our target market that we already have the audience for wants this. Let's just go out there and produce it and make it.
Yeah, we found out that wine was the only alcohol class you could legally ship direct to consumer, which we felt was a loophole, avoiding the 3-tier system. Like, I don't know how familiar your audience is with the alcohol system, but there's 3 tiers. There's distributors, there's suppliers, and there's retailers. I can't legally sell straight to a retailer, even if I have the relationship. I have to sell to a distributor. The distributor has to sell to the retailer to the customer. And it's a very, very it dates back to Prohibition. It's just so much incredible red tape. And we were like, oh my God, this is a great idea. We can ship directly to your door. Not knowing that UPS is more expensive and more prohibitive, honestly, than a distributor.
Yeah.
And it's difficult alcohol is a very, I want to drink now. It's not, I want to drink in 3 to 5 days when I get my order. So it's funny, direct to consumer is definitely a pillar, but the biggest way to win in this industry is still through wholesale. So that like big idea, like, oh, we're going to go direct to consumer, avoid the big bad wolf. It's not at all what's happening. We are working with the big bad wolf and using direct to consumer as a flywheel for wholesale. So we're using it as proof of concept, buy it online, try it, then go in, buy it at Whole Foods, for example. And gathering first party data and using it for retailers. Like alcohol companies don't have first party data. Like they don't know who's buying. Like they can pay Target maybe to get some data back from a loyalty program, but they really don't know.
Wow. Yeah, because I've been following the Nelk Boys for a long time.
Yeah.
And what they've done with their Happy Dad, it was like, cool, who's our target? They've been making content for a long time, as well as you and your wife too, but making content for a long time. I don't know if they did a survey like you did. I like that. And I think for a lot of other people that are listening to this that have any kind of audience, it's the perfect way to get started. I think we did that for companies too, when it's like, what name do you like? What Alex Hormozy talks about that too. Like, what book title do you like? What book cover do you like? Like surveying your audience.
Why not? You have it at your disposal. Like, why not ask them?
Yeah. Do a bunch of A/B testing.
But what I find is that often the consumer doesn't know what they want.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we do that also with our software, software development too. Like you ask, what do you need? What do you want? How do you, like, they don't know what they want. They don't know. So that's kind of interesting that's great, definitely, because now they have they're invested emotionally, intellectually into the product. So that's fantastic. But how do they describe what they want, the flavor profile that they want, and all that? We
definitely led them. Yeah. Like it wasn't a fill in the blank.
Okay.
Should we
tell us what should
kind
we
of
launch?
Drink you like? No, it was like, hey, we're going to launch a canned alcoholic beverage.
Okay.
Your base options are malt, vodka, tequila, wine, etc. And they picked wine, and then it was okay. Out of these 10 flavors, pick the top 4 that you like.
Okay,
and we used it. If it was consumers don't know what they want. If it's a blank statement, we would have gotten some really bad ideas. Some really bad ideas. So.
And then when you started this, so you did the survey. Did you have a full-time job at the time? And then what did that look like? Did you self-fund it? Did you have to go and raise money? Like, talk about building the actual business and making it an actual product.
Yeah, so when we truly started working on it, it was COVID. So COVID there were 2 options during COVID. Option 1 was you took advantage of your free time or you didn't take advantage of your free time. But working from home and having a full-time job, you certainly still had hours in the day to do other things and be exploratory. So I did that for 6 months while still having a job, and then the rest of it was just took us probably 18 months before we were ready to go out and raise money.
Got it.
And we raised a $3.6 million seed round. We've raised $4 million since, and alcohol is cash burning until you get to a certain point. So it's raise, grow, try to keep burn down.
Yeah.
But it was certainly not self-funded. I wish I would love to have self-funded it.
Yeah.
I contributed, but it's a very, very expensive industry.
So why weren't you able to start a little smaller market, and it didn't make sense financially to do that, or
it just wasn't in the original business plan. Like we met with tons of beverage alcohol founders and came to the conclusion that you needed to do things a certain way. And looking back on it, we probably could have just put in enough money for inventory for that first direct-to-consumer drop and scaled it that way. But with the intentions of going into wholesale and using the direct data to inform wholesale, you needed boots on the ground. You need people that are actively merchandising.
Yeah, because you have to go through a distributor.
Have to.
As opposed to we had a sauce company, and then we didn't have to. We could sell directly to the store. We literally walked into Whole Foods and then put our bottles on the shelf.
Yeah, no, alcohol is a massive pain in the ass.
So because of that, then you have to have a certain volume in order to make sense to have all that resource. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
And you're heavily reliant on other people. Like you do your best to motivate them, but many of the reps at these distributors are union, and it's hard. It's very hard. Very hard to incentivize people that legally need to sell your product to sell your product. The best way to sort of overcome that is mandates. Like, hey, I have 170 HEBs. Go and fill the shelves. Hey, we have 200 mandated Whole Foods. Like that. But in terms of independence, you're competing with the likes of Captain Morgan and Kettle and these experienced brands, legacy brands that
for sure.
They certainly don't need to go in and try a buyer on what the product tastes like. They know what White Claw tastes like. You know? So.
And for the sauce too, like we had distributors. We also had the distributor. You want to incentivize them to sell, but sometimes they're not really salespeople. And then you have to give them a lot of information about the product. And then you hope the best that they're going to sell to. Otherwise, you have to sell yourself. And go to Whole Foods, all that, or you have a broker. So did you have to do a lot of selling to the direct stores for them to buy to the distributor? Okay.
Yeah, and so it completely depends on depending on the state, the regulations are completely different. So we're sitting in New York. New York is the absolute bane of my existence. New York, you're not legally allowed to own more than one liquor store. So every single liquor store in the state of New York is independently owned. So you cannot sell into 10, 20, 100 at a time. You can't. Outside of New York, it's a completely different story. And depending on the state, it's, we're a 6% wine-based product. So legally, we can be sold into bodegas. But if you were 7%, you couldn't. And if you were a spirit, you couldn't. But because you're wine, and it changes by the state. Every state is different. So another huge cost up front was legal and brand registrations and licensing. And that was probably like the first million was just...
Even counties, right? Some counties also have different regulations.
Yeah, and some distributors only distribute in certain counties. So depending on...
Oh my God.
We picked liquor distributors, which for the most part manage a state. But if you went with beer, you could have 16 distributors in one state. So even if you do get a Target mandate, you're managing 16 different groups, all to do one job. It's
my God.
Okay.
It's crazy.
It's a lot of staff just even on your end to deal with all the different distributors.
Call that barrier to entry.
There's a huge barrier to entry, but once you crack it, it's very lucrative. And the reason everybody's in it is because the multiples on revenue for sale are so high. It's not in food. I don't know what it was in sauce, but food is usually 2 to 3x revenue. Alcohol is somewhere around 10x revenue. So if you can build a business to 50 million in sales, you're in a really good spot.
Yeah. Amazing.
How about the manufacturing? So was it easy for you to find a manufacturer? Do you have to have manufacturers in each of the states also?
Yeah, good question. So we started off just co-packing in Sonoma. That's where we got our wine in Northern California. It was a part of our story. And then all of a sudden you get so much volume from the East Coast and freight is so expensive that even though it's a part of your story, it doesn't really matter. You have to produce on both coasts. So now we have an operation in Vermont. We have an operation in Sonoma. And eventually we'll probably put something in the Texas, Florida area. Just again to reduce freight because that's a huge input.
And how about the cross-state transportation across state? Is there any problems there?
No, no. They pick up from a licensed warehouse that is legally allowed to sell alcohol, and they go from New Jersey to Florida or from California to Florida or whatever it may be.
Okay.
Good.
What made you decide when you first ran that survey, like, why alcohol? Why was that the path you want? I mean, you just mentioned, kind of hinted at the multiple aspect. Was that why you wanted to get into alcohol, or what was your reasoning for that?
Yeah, so there's the emotional reason, which is that we were social drinkers. We were drinking canned products that we didn't like. Like it seemed like an industry that was booming with innovation. All of a sudden, we found out that nobody likes beer. Like that's what White Claw proved, that we thought Americans loved beer. But look how quickly light beer took over beer and how quickly White Claw took over light beer.
That's true.
So clearly the American people have been told that they like beer when they don't like beer. Yeah. Some of them do. But so if you're going to move to White Claw, then there's such an opportunity for disruption. White Claw did $4 billion in sales the year before, and we were looking at that and we're like, oh my God, there's such an opportunity. If we can get half of 1% of market share. We're a massive company, and all of the industry strategics don't know how to incubate brands. So they have all of these 100-year-old legacy brands, but the industry is dominated by acquisition and using the acquisition to then grow.
Yeah.
As opposed to in other industries, they do know how to innovate. They, for whatever reason, the legacy brands don't know how to get it 100% right. What is who is the celebrity face? What is the product? What is their out to market? Where is the community? Because an Anheuser-Busch, for example, will think, oh, we have such a huge community that loves Bud Light, but that Bud Light consumer won't necessarily like your new seltzer product, right? So it's a different community. So they're buying community. We have communities, so that sort of naturally became an opportunity. And the truth is, I did not know how regulated it was when I entered. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have done it.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, because what we've done to date has been amazing. It's the greatest puzzle of my life, and I love it. But I do think that if we had known, I'm happy we didn't know, because I don't know if we would have done it.
Oh, really? So you might have decided not to go ahead with your idea.
If I had known how expensive it would be and how unnecessarily difficult laws make it, it's possible that I wouldn't have. So I'm happy I didn't know.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I'm happy I didn't know.
Very good. How about the packaging? So cans, like I haven't seen the packaging. So, what made you decide to go in can? I know that for the bottles, definitely it's horrible because they weigh so much. So if you're gonna ship them,
cans weigh a lot too.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. But this is what the product looks like.
Okay, nice.
That's one of the packages. But yes, it's definitely expensive to ship. You need to get a high average order value for it to really make sense. And the truth is, people don't want to spend the $150 to buy alcohol online.
Yeah.
They'd much rather go into a store.
Yeah.
So what we do is I don't know if this is your question, but we really lean into limited drops. So we did a drop with Clausen over the summer on a pickle spritz that went completely viral, did 6 figures in sales, and 4 days sold out online.
Oh, wow.
And that sort of created this idea of, okay, we can partner with influencers and brands to innovate. So we did a pink lemonade product with this influencer named Lauren Bostic. She asked her community the same way we did, what do you guys want? They said pink lemonade. And
oh, wow.
we launched that.
That's an amazing idea.
Yeah.
So you're white labeling, in a way, your product for a celebrity. Or
collaborating. Yeah, we still make all it's 100% our recipes, and our in-house team makes the packaging. And but it's a great way to use direct-to-consumer, make sure that that's the only place that they can buy that product, right? So whether or not you want to spend $100 online, you want to buy it in store, if you want that product, you have to buy it online.
Yeah.
We're then also getting the Clausen customers, we're getting the Skinny Confidential customers, so we'll see it's no cost of acquiring a customer because it's 100% organic, but we'll see 67% net new customers because they're coming from their communities.
Wow.
And then we'll put them into our funnel. And
Amazing.
yeah.
Tell me about, because I went through your Instagram, your wife's Instagram, but tell me more about that and how that's played a role too. Because I'm assuming that you have been creating content long before you started this company.
Oh yeah.
And what was there any like major driver towards creating that content? And I went to your content too, and there's a lot of like food reviews, or you're testing different restaurants. Do you make that content just because you like it? Is that what your audience likes?
Yeah.
Because for me, all my content is about real estate, but I've tried to make more and more content around business. Every time I do it, it's just like views plummet because it's just not what my audience is used. So if I talk about a sales funnel versus flipping a house, the two videos are gonna, I notice a difference. But I do like the restaurant scene or testing new food and all this kind of stuff. So like, I know it's like a bajillion questions, but tell me about your kind of marketing within Spritz and like your organic content.
On my page in particular. On
your page in particular.
Yeah. So when we first started the company, I was so busy that I was not posting anything. Like it was just Spritz related content. When I had an idea for a video, I would make it, but it was just, it just became so saturated with me talking about Spritz, which was not native to what I was doing. I started originally, I started by posting memes. Then when stories came out, it started to be my face, and it just became a general comedy presence. And I would go to restaurants and I would take pictures of my food. People loved what I was eating. And I thought that if I integrated comedy and cooking and made these recipe videos, which were really popping off on TikTok, like people were just, it seemed like even if you weren't a chef, if you knew how to cook and knew how to edit, that you could find success with it. And so I just started posting, and the first one did really well. And the second did really well. To your point, it's just like, it's just finding what your audience is going to like, but staying true to the reason they followed you in the first place. The reason they followed me in the first place is because I'm funny. Yeah. Because they like what I have to say. And as long as if I made very, very serious cooking videos, I don't think that they would like it. I think that actually they might like it because they think it was a parody. But because I lean into my comedic nature, it makes it all sort of flow. But integrating Spritz Society was easy because it's mine. Like I talk about it when I'm in the moment, the same way that I would post a regular Instagram story if I'm drinking one, if I'm on the golf course and drinking one, if I am celebrating a milestone at the company because this community knows that we built it. So it's a little bit different from promoting a product that isn't yours. Then you have to find like a really natural hook as to why this is relevant for them. But for us, they know the journey.
Yeah, I love it. It's kind of, the way you said that kind of reminds me of like Logan Paul and Prime, where just like everything that he's still doing his thing and doing what he likes, which is like doing the wrestling and doing all these different things, his podcast, but it's just like product placement. So just the product is there throughout your life then, and then throughout the content.
Yeah, and on the Logan side of things, I mean, what he's doing is completely revolutionary. Like they sold more bottles of Prime last year than Gatorade. Like insane. So if I had that level of success and my audience wasn't turned off by the amount that I was posting it, I would be leaning into it as much as humanly possible too. They're also so insanely profitable or raised so much money. I don't know which one it is. I guess it's just sales. Like if they sold more than Gatorade, they just must be absolutely pumping product. But every single time I look on his Instagram, they're now the official sponsor of what was Staples Center. They're now the official sponsor of, I don't know the name of any of these freaking arenas. It's unbelievable. It's all crypto. No, it's like these failed crypto companies come in and buy the naming rights, and then they can't pay for it. The same thing happened in Miami. It was American Airlines, and now it's Sam Bankman-Fried's. You know what I mean?
It was FTX.
Right?
FTX for a year.
Disgusting, honestly. But yeah,
we should talk more about that. Like just like
they're crushing.
The energy went up.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then what is for Spritz Society? So you've just continued down your same lane, but just included the product in average daily life because it's your product. It's you. Spritz Society, have you created its own organic content and created that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we have an amazing social media manager that creates content every single day across TikTok and Instagram. It has its own Instagram handle. It's just Spritz, SPRITZ, which I'm very proud of having acquired.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so much more important before we launched too. I was like, yes, this is it. And it's like, it really doesn't matter. But like, it's
nothing can stop me now.
Yeah, but it's like a nice vanity play. We absolutely create completely separate content for a separate community that we funnel towards. But the core fan of Spritz Society is involved in our emails, SMS, social, etc.
Is your plan to kind of like move a lot of that social presence and stuff like that and the adoption towards your Spritz brand and handle, and then have less of you as part of the marketing, or
for this? Yes, absolutely. So we're trying. The idea is use ourselves to introduce somebody to the brand and then have them fall in love with the brand by themselves. Like if you look at our Instagram, it's really not us at all. Like the Spritz Instagram is the community that drinks it. It's photo shoots, it's product, it's relevant things in pop culture. The team does a really good job. Really good.
Awesome.
You get testimonials and stuff like that from your... Okay.
People will come on and rate the product online. Yeah, exactly.
That's so good.
How we got the handle?
I bought it. The question was, how did I get Spritz?
$1
I bought
million.
it. I bought it. I bought it, I don't know, 5 years ago. And the person that I bought it from hadn't used it since like 2009 or something.
Oh,
She
really?
made the
God.
Instagram and never used it. And I DM'd her and I'm like, hi, I'd like to buy this. And she lived in the UK and I think I paid her like the equivalent of like $1,500.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, which again at the time I was like, yeah, and it's like honestly I
That's
wasted
so cheap.
$1,500. Like it is cheap, but like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. Like the discoverability of a handle, none of it matters. Where it matters is if you have a previously existing brand,
Yeah.
and you like for example, we had for my podcast, Good Guys, we had the Instagram handle Good Guys Podcast. I wanted Good Guys because the name of the podcast is not Good Guys Podcast, it's Good Guys.
Yeah.
So we reached out. Sometimes you can do it through Instagram. Sometimes they can facilitate the swap if it's truly inactive. If something's totally dead, you can reach out to them.
Wow.
And sometimes they can do it.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't think it matters. When you're first starting, I don't think it matters.
But it's great that you're able to kind of leverage your community and the people that you're talking to on a daily basis, and then bring them to your brand,
Yeah.
to
Oh,
your
absolutely.
product and all that. So
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we've had that as well. With Antoine has a lot of followers and stuff, and that really helped everything that we've done. Like he just says, oh yeah, I'm looking for whatever, somebody to work for us or somebody to
Yeah.
do this, and then just like 15 people show up, and
Yeah, and that's only with 150,000 followers.
Yeah.
Like, I can only imagine as the numbers continue to grow and scale, like 2 million followers would be insane.
Yeah.
yeah.
It is.
So obviously it's critically important. So what would be the next step for you, like after Spritz? So how do you kind of like wean yourself? Are you planning to wean yourself off of that and then have another one?
Yeah, I mean,
another
not wean
product?
myself off. Like we will sell the brand
Okay.
eventually, but it's my baby. Like I love it. Like the plan is to be involved in
But
it.
you want to sell your baby?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Once
for
it
sure.
grows up.
Just
No,
want to clarify.
yeah, for sure. If my baby's worth a lot of money, give me the money. But I'll always be emotionally attached to
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And if I would like to ideally remain a part of it for forever. But yeah, the goal is to continue to launch brands that people want, innovate in spaces that need innovating, and continue to find ways to make content that allows me to drive to those businesses. So the podcast was such a happy accident. Like Josh and I, one day we recorded a pilot and it was so easy and so fun. And now I have another way of promoting not only other people's products, but my own and talking about them.
Yeah.
Cooking has opened up this avenue towards, do I make appliances? Do I make, like, what do I, like, it's now a new area where I could potentially create something in only if there is need for disruption. Like I don't want to make something that doesn't need to be made. But we really did feel like based on their reactions that this product in alcohol was not something that they were getting.
Yeah. And then does Spritz have like a large marketing budget? Do you have absolutely no marketing budget at all? Like
Yeah, it's
just purely organic?
right now it's 90% organic.
Holy shit.
Yeah. We have to spend money in market, like traditionally on tastings or point of sale materials or distributor incentives, things like that. But we were spending money on paid media and it was going towards nothing. Like I would get the report back and it would be like, okay, it's a 1-to-1 ROAS, but you sold the same amount that you sold when you didn't run it. And it's like, okay, what are we doing here? Like I'm paying to have you click on my own branded search term, but they would have gone to Spritz Society anyways. Like we have good SEO. If you type in Spritz Society, we pop up first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't want you clicking on the one that was paid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
paid
yeah.
and then it's not paid, but it's the same link.
Yeah.
And we saw there were so many people coming to the site from the paid link. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
And I think that alcohol in general is just a very, very difficult direct-to-consumer it's very hard to profitably do paid media with alcohol direct-to-consumer.
And is there
Community is far better.
Yeah, and that sounded like Google pay-per-click, what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Did you ever try Meta?
We did.
You
yeah.
did?
It just isn't.
Are you able to do ads on Meta for alcohol?
You are. It's very. You can obviously you're only targeting 21 plus.
Yeah.
It's just
expensive as
expensive.
hell.
It's just expensive and it's difficult.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
maybe once we have far more awareness, it's something to come back to retarget people that have already been exposed to us upper funnel and.
Yeah.
But I found that organic influence, community, working with friends or ambassadors and giving them a code, like all of that is better. And then these collaborations we do them quarterly, and they are our direct to consumer business. Like that is the best way for us to do it.
So if we look at the new generations coming up, or someone that is looking, this thing about being an entrepreneur, may have a product, but may not have the followers. Like what would you recommend? Would you recommend that they start really focus on followers? How would you, and then kind of like build their social media presence, or do it in conjunction with the product that they want to do? Like what would be the approach really to kind of maximize their, their time and their effort?
I mean, nobody can do everything. Like I have such an amazing group of partners and team members, and like the amount that I know is so minimal in comparison to everybody. And so I think it's knowing what you do best and making sure that you find a partner that knows what you don't know best. So I think it's a very tall task to ask an entrepreneur to build a social following. Like if you're truly an entrepreneur, then that's your thing. You know how to build businesses. Go and find somebody that really knows social and has that audience, and work together. And I wouldn't encourage somebody to try to do something that's not comfortable for them with the goal of selling something. Now, if they want to start posting online for fun and seeing if it's something that, like a muscle that they can learn, totally encourage that. But I find that whenever somebody launches an Instagram account and their goal is making money, they fail. Like if their goal is creating great content and building a community, and in 5 years, maybe you can make some money, totally. But if your intention is, I'm going to create this to monetize this, then your content is nothing that anybody wants to see, right? It's like such a, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess my thinking is that, so if I don't have a social media presence and I'm an entrepreneur, it's a lot harder than someone else that is also an entrepreneur, that is driven by the same thing as me, but they have a social media presence, and then they can tap into that.
It depends on how much pressure you feel from timing, right? Like I think that all that social does is it skips you X number of years. Like you can still build an alcohol company and develop a community without a social presence. You can't do it in 3 years. You can do it in 10 years, right? So if you don't care how long it takes and it's your life's work to build this business, then I don't think you need the social following. The social following will then end up coming later because people discovered you naturally and found you. But if you want to build a business quickly without a ton of money, you need a social following.
Who doesn't want that?
I don't know. Not me. I'm speaking for who
I want to do it quick with not a lot of money.
Yeah. So I would highly recommend working with somebody that has an engaged community.
Yeah.
And that's not just a lot of followers, by the way. There's so many people that have a ton of followers where nobody wants to buy anything from them. We see that all the time.
It has to be engaged,
Yeah. It has to be somebody that's engaged.
100%.
Yeah.
So you were working a full-time job. You did this survey to your audience to start Spritz. What point did you... This was all during COVID as well, right?
Yeah.
So what point did you say, all right, this is time to leave my job? Was it after you raised your first round? Did you just make the move and make the jump? Or how did that transition go?
It was once I felt that I could no longer split my time and had a legitimate path towards making and taking a salary with Spritz Society. Like I totally respect the entrepreneur that goes out there and says that they take in no money and they're just grinding and they're eating ramen and whatever hell stories you hear from all these quacks. Well, the truth is, like, everybody wants to make enough to feel good about themselves. There's two reasons that somebody makes a salary, right? One is, of course, to support themselves and support their family. The other is validation for your work. Like, if you're working really, really hard and being paid nothing, then why are you working really, really hard? There needs to be some type of cheese in the rat wheel to keep things going on a daily basis. So once I figured out that, okay, we raised money and a very, very small portion of this could go towards my salary, I then felt comfortable leaving.
Got it.
I had never understood that. People really do. They're like, yeah, I quit my job and now I'm making no money building this thing. And it's like, why didn't you build the thing and wait to get fired at a minimum? Or at least wait until it's viable enough to make some money off it, but I never understood it.
Well, sometimes it requires a lot of effort to get things off the ground. And then, like you mentioned before, I mean, you have to be able to afford it.
Yeah.
Take the time off and do that. But if you have a choice, if you have enough money and you can get this thing off the ground and put 100% effort, I'd rather do that than kind of like extend it and do the weekends and I've done that for years, by the way. The weekends and it's very difficult, and you're not fully committed, and really it fails most of the time because you're not fully committed into that. I like kind of like a little bit kind of like burning your bridge behind you, and then
You do.
you have to make it work. You
Yeah.
have to
So
figure it out.
at least personally, I like before.
I don't recommend anybody.
No,
do
I'm saying
this,
before
but-
I like the match, I like to make sure that what's in front of me is viable.
Yeah.
It
for
takes
sure.
you
Yeah,
a
yeah.
long time.
I'm not saying
Three-
like,
like-
you have an idea and then let's
But
quit.
that-
I
but
quit
that's
my
what people
job.
do.
No, I plan a lot and lots of
Exactly.
planning and
You,
stuff like that.
you make
beforehand.
sure that what
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
jumping into
Yeah, yeah.
is
That's right.
something
Yeah.
worth it.
But when it's
1,000%,
jump
then you
out
have
there.
to go all
Yeah.
in.
But I
Back
see it with a lot of real estate investors. They all have full-time jobs. They want to flip houses or buy rentals on the side. They'll quit their job and be like, I'm doing this full-time. Then they go and try to buy their first house. They go to a bank and the bank's like, cool, what's your source of income? Oh, I just quit my job 2 weeks ago. Well, you should have talked to us 2 weeks ago when you had a source of income. Now they can't get any loans from any lender. And it's like, then they have to kind of restart or go and use, they typically go use hard money, which, increases the rate by a ton. So I agree with you too, that a lot of people who start in the real estate aspect should keep their jobs, build something sustainable that they know they can make X amount of dollars per month to live, and then jump in.
Well, from the little I know about real estate, it seems that you have an opportunity to make passive income. So you really can certainly keep your job and you're not going to build an empire while you're still working a full-time job somewhere else. But how about you flip a house, do it successfully?
Yeah, do it a couple of times.
Yeah, before you leave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before you sell your own house.
And does your wife, one thing I wanted to ask you too is about you and your wife's relationship as it goes to Spritz as well. Is she working in the business too? I know you're the CEO of the company. Is she working at Spritz at all? I know she's a comedian. She has a lot of other stuff on her plate. But
She's like the face and markets it.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
it's like her, again, it would be very weird if I was the only person talking to millennial women versus the millennial woman that I'm married to talking to millennial women. So it's really her and her sister Jackie co-host The Toast. Their community was enormously important towards launching this product. They were also surveyed, and
Awesome.
so they're active. They're not like, they don't work day to day in the business, but you go on their Instagrams and their podcasts, the products placed every day. And
Amazing.
so it's a part of what they do, but
Beautiful.
yeah.
So tell us more about kind of like your relationship. Then you're married, and then does that cause any? Do you have how do you work together? Like, do you have a clear definition of you do this, I do this, more collaboration? How do you work this out?
Well, because she's not full-time in the business, it makes things easier, but I certainly defer to her on a daily basis of where lines should be. Like, she is, I guess it's like happy wife, happy life is sort of the way that it works.
I never believed in that.
And we have a wonderful relationship. And she, in Spritz Society, does like take the reins from a organic marketing perspective on her side, and then we work together making content for brands, or she'll come on my podcast, I'll go on her podcast. It's just very natural. They're both comedy podcasts, so it makes it easy. I realize I have not been funny on this podcast, but this has been
That was
it's been a more
I was
serious
curious about
podcast.
that
A couple
comedy
times
part.
you were-
Yeah.
We'll clip those.
Yeah, well.
I was always surprised when you mentioned your comedy talent, and then I was just
the,
like,
the,
oh,
the
okay.
questions have been rather serious. It's not, I don't.
About the operations. So, are you involved in the operations?
Yeah.
Your wife? So you're heavily involved in the operations, or you have a
Heavily.
CEO that?
Heavily.
Okay.
I have a president who's my partner who runs the operations side of the business, but I'm heavily involved. We're kind of co-CEOs.
Okay.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, so your wife has the Instagram handle Girl with No Job, and you started Boy with No Job. Tell us about that and the story that's behind that.
Yeah. So she she started it first. I 1,000% rode her coattails into success. We didn't know what that meant at the time, but this was 11 years ago, 10 years ago.
Wow.
And she had a blog called Girl with a Job, and she got fired from that job for shitting on her employer. She was in college, and so for accuracy purposes, she changed to Girl with No Job. And we had been dating for like a year. She's on her phone 24/7. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, I don't, like, we're not. You're in bed and you're making memes. like let's talk, let's hang out. And she's like, honestly, you would love it. Like, you should just try. Why don't you make Boy with No Job? See if you can get a male audience, and we'll do it together. And that was literally it.
Wow.
And we both started creating, both started posting. She took it in the direction of full-time influencing to podcast to comic. I always was, okay, Boy with No Job is like my side hustle that can make me some money, but I'm always going to have a full-time job. I always worked in media and marketing and influencing and PR, and it was never something that I thought would be like a core pillar until I realized what I could do with it, right? Which was create companies that then leverage that to...
So social media is first.
Social media is first, for sure.
Boy with kind of a job.
Yeah, it's a heavily
Part-time
ironic
job.
username
Yeah.
at this point, but we can't change it.
And what were the memes that you were making? Was this when Instagram was photo only?
Yeah.
And then was it all like comedy memes?
Always. Yeah. It's just relatable humor. Like that was our whole shtick. That's what my podcast is. It's just honestly daily inconveniences, like very Curb Your Enthusiasm-esque, like
Or
those
Dilbert.
moments that you think about but don't necessarily say, and then somebody else says, and you're like, oh, I agree. I agree. And it was all about making something that was very shareable.
Yeah.
Like at the time, the way that you shared content on Instagram was commenting. You would @ me.
Yeah.
So you'd see a flood of comments. Now today's version of that is the send paper airplane.
Yeah.
You're DMing it to a friend.
Yeah.
But it's all how do you make shareable content, and that's how memes really grew. And that's why meme accounts got so big. And then when we saw that people were posting video, she started posting podcast clips. She then started posting clips from her stand-up. She then started making original video, but we just evolved with the platform.
Got it. And then for you, did you ever think about going down the stand-up route and doing that kind of stuff?
Her thing.
Her
thing. Yeah, I would never
But
step
you are
on that.
very
I would never step on that. though.
comedic,
Yeah.
though.
It's just...
And your outlet has just been just the social content, but not getting up on stage. And
The podcast allows me to do that.
Okay,
So the podcast, we record Mondays and Thursdays. It's called Good Guys. It's an hour twice a week, and it's funny for an hour. So we get to get all of our comedy juices out there, and then eventually we'll do a Good Guys tour. So that'll sort of be pseudo stand-up,
Okay,
I guess,
yeah.
where we do a live podcast.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, being a stand-up comic is so unbelievably hard, and what she does is so unbelievably impressive. And putting together a show, and selling tickets around the country and physically moving, it's
traveling.
a lot.
Yeah,
It's a lot. So
Have you guys done for Spritz Society because you just mentioned touring. Have you done any touring or appearances when you guys go and launch in new stores?
So we'll do two things. The first is whenever my wife tours, we will sell into all the theaters that she's touring.
Oh, amazing.
So it's the perfect product placement. She drinks it on stage, they buy it, they drink it. It's amazing.
Perfect.
We'll then do meet and greets for like key accounts, Target, Whole Foods, Walmart, like making sure that it has to be a big enough store where there's some type of national recognition.
Yeah.
And we'll go in and tell people to meet us, and we'll get anywhere from 300 to 500 people sign products, and they'll buy product, and it's amazing.
Wow. And then are you constantly traveling then? Like how often are you? Damn.
The meet and greets themselves will do like one a month, but I'm constantly traveling to different states, meeting with distributors from those states, sales reps from those states.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's an in-person thing.
Yeah.
Big in-person thing.
Yeah, it was the food business was fun too. Like on the sauce side, like when we were doing that, it was fun. Like the people that we were working with, the distributor, the stores, it was always so nice. Everybody's always happy. just see you and stuff like that. Oh, you don't have that.
Definitely not.
Compared to
always,
my job,
definitely not always happy to see me. Like
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
you'll run into a nice person.
Yeah. Most of them were happy. Most
Yeah.
of them were happy. It was
Most of them were very happy.
Yeah. So for me, my experience,
Wow.
but
Maybe it's me.
yeah, could be. Maybe it's because I compare it with my job when I was, and then nobody was happy there. So
That's true.
So it was nice to be able to see people with that were friendly
And excited about what they're doing.
Yeah. All right. So we're about to kind of like wrap it up here, and I was wondering if you would kind of talk to the people, the young entrepreneur, maybe even the old entrepreneur, but people that have entrepreneurial spirit. What would you recommend that they do to, if they have an idea, they want to get a business started? What should they be doing? What do you recommend?
I think that they should do it. Like, I think it's, as I said before, like I had so many ideas where I started something and stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Like the hardest part is actually making a product and actually taking it to market and doing it. Anybody can have a great idea. Like I know so people love to say, "Oh, I thought of that." Well, you didn't do it. Like it doesn't matter that you thought of it. We all have a million ideas a day about things that we could create, but I think that actually doing it is the best first step. And it doesn't have to be in the biggest way possible. Making some type of proof of concept that you can show somebody so they can understand what you're doing as opposed to just having an idea.
Yeah.
And then I think finding other people that can be passionate about what you want to build and want to build it with you. Building alone, I can't even imagine building alone. It would be very difficult to take the highs and lows alone. And I think that you would get caught in thinking that your ideas are so great when in reality they're not. Like nobody's bulletproof. Like I'll think I have a great idea. I'll run it by people that are important to the business and they'll tell me, Ben, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And after reflecting, I realize it's not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I think having checks and balances to make sure that you don't make you're always going to make mistakes, but that you don't make that mistake.
Yeah.
That fixable mistake, I think is important. So start it and surround yourself with people that are passionate to help you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And raise money. And if somebody wants to give you money, get more money.
We didn't even talk about how you raised this money.
Yeah, I know.
How did you raise your money?
Family offices, high net worth strategics, no VCs.
You knew them, or
VCs
you?
are the devil. Did I know them? Some of them I knew.
Okay.
And a lot of it is who you know, who they know, who they know, who they know, who they know.
Mm-hmm.
So networking through people, and if people are nice enough to give you 3 introductions lead to 9 introductions from the 3 people that they introduce you to.
Yeah.
But you're talking to 1,000 people and hoping that 10 say yes. That's sort of the idea.
So, and you pitch them your idea and your business.
Yeah.
And all that
One
kind of
idea,
stuff.
or did you have
No,
anything?
put together a rock solid deck.
Yeah.
Okay.
It definitely was easier because of the communities that we've built.
Mm-hmm.
We had samples of products that they could taste.
There we go.
But
Nice.
our pre-seed round was pre-revenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was all a concept, but based on community, how we founded the brand through community, and the great liquid to back it up.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Greatly
Thank you.
appreciate you. Before we wrap up, where can people reach out to you and learn more about Spritz?
At Spritz is our Instagram. SpritzSociety.com is our website. And podcast, Good Guys. The Instagram is Good Guys. And you can find us on Spotify, Apple.
Beautiful.
And listen.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Everybody, please go check Ben and all of his social profiles. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.